It says, verse 14 says, now we exhort you, brethren, warn those who are unruly, comfort the faint-hearted, uphold the weak, be patient with all. See that no one renders evil for evil to anyone, but always pursue what is good for yourselves and for all. And verse 22 says, and abstain from all appearance of evil. One of the most important aspects of life, particularly in the world that we live in today, is transparency. Sometimes you may be doing something and you may not be doing anything wrong, but if it's veiled, it has the appearance of something evil or corrupt. And so we need to ensure that the watchword of transparency is something that is a guiding principle that we use. I remember, particularly in the information age, because nowadays, whatever you do is recorded and it's available somewhere on the internet. I remember several years ago, I was on a flight to Canada, and I was sitting next to a gentleman who was a big artist in the hip-hop world, and we had a discussion. And as we were arriving in Toronto, you know, he was asking me what I did, I was asking him what he did, and so on. And then an interesting thing occurred when we arrived in Toronto. While we had the baggage claim, he came up to me, he said, man, you're a pastor from the Bahamas. He said, I Google you. And it just reminded me that it's so important to be honest about your information today, because we live in a world where information is so readily available. Of course, we shouldn't do it just because of the possibility of exposure. We should do it as a principle, but even more so, understanding that whatever you do and say, somebody can Google you tomorrow and they can find out whether what you said is true or not. So I want to remind members today of the importance of transparency and avoiding the appearance of evil in your dealings. Amen? Amen. Bow our heads together. Father God, we just thank you for this day once again. Thank you for life, health, strength. And thank you for our Bahamas that we are privileged to serve in different capacities. We ask for your wisdom and guidance today as we deliberate. And we thank you for a favorable outcome today in all of our deliberations. In Jesus' name, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we give those who trespass. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever.
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable members, when the business of this House suspended, the honorable member for Marco City had reserved the floor. The chair now recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Bahamas economy has been driven by the twin engine of tourism and financial services for decades. We have consistently, under both administrations, talked about the need for diversification and structural adjustment. And while some progress has been made, it has been slow, and the contribution of other sectors have not been as significant as forecast in both contracts and the manifestos released by successive governments. We are at a point, Mr. Speaker, where the country is once again having a candid discussion about the need for diversification and structural adjustments. The portfolio that I have the honor of spearheading is one of the areas that have been identified as being pivotal to any attempt to establish yet an additional leg on which this economy ought to stand. But we've been here before. In the aftermath of 9/11, there was a tremendous amount of discussion about the necessity of the Bahamas to engage in structural adjustments to address external or exogenous shocks that can adversely impact our economy. In the case of agriculture and marine resources, and to some extent like manufacturing, the concern was that if we refuse to be in charge of our productive system as it relates to food, we would find that the disruption in the international supply chain or value chain would have an adverse impact on the Bahamas because much of what we consume, food and non-food items, we run the risk of having critical shortages. Once we emerge from the disruption brought on by 9/11 and the closure of the US border, we found ourselves returning to business as usual. And so, Mr. Speaker, we are back there again. And so today, I wish in this discussion to talk a bit about what we have been doing as it relates to make this projection of true diversification possible, and what we ought to do in terms of shaping the new Bahamas that this government intends to usher in. Mr. Speaker, we are importing today roughly $1 billion worth of food, 600 million or so fresh fruits, vegetables, proteins such as beef, pork, small ruminants, in other words, sheep and goat, and poultry, both egg and meat. Another 400 million in value-added food products that are in our food stores, processed foods. The studies we've conducted over time clearly indicate that we have the ability to grow many of the items that we presently consume. The IDB study, which we commissioned, confirmed also by other studies by the Food and Agriculture Organization, by CADI, that is the agriculture arm of CARICOM, and by ICA, the agriculture arm of the Organization of American States. They all, in separate ways, conclude that there are a number of items that we do have the ability to produce. And through import substitution, through producing locally and buying locally, we have the ability over the course of the next 2 to 3 years with focus to cut into the billion-dollar food bill by not less than $200 million. And if we have a response from the private sector that demonstrates that the private sector has confidence in our local productive capacity, we could in fact save additional funding. Additional funds that tend to go out of the country, what we call economic leakage, to purchase those food items that we consume as a population and by extension, tourists consume while visiting the Bahamas. And that's only on the food side. That does not capture much of what we consume in non-food items that are agriculturally based. So, Mr. Speaker, Bahamian public, by way of you, Mr. Speaker, we have an excellent opportunity, but we have a huge challenge, because a part of that challenge is the cultural impediment, our refusal to commit ourselves as a country to doing what is in our own interest, which is to mobilize, better distribute scarce resources to truly diversify this economy. And what is true is that those items produced in agriculture are consumed at a minimum 3 times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Food is an absolute necessity. And we know before the day begins that this is at least one product, if produced properly at the right price point and consistently, that we can earn revenue from it. And wealth creation, which is this government's objective, would then be made possible. And employment, which is a secondary objective. So, Mr. Speaker, we have set out on a task over the last 4 years. First, by my colleague, the member from Bamboo Town, and continuing those initiatives to help in this process of diversification. And to be clear, Mr. Speaker, neither one of us, despite our commitment to the administration that we believe is the best option for the development of this country, we've not been tribalistic in that approach. And both of us, when necessary, knew how to find past ministers, regardless of their political colors, to get clarification on matters that would ensure that good programs did not disappear and that bad programs were adjusted without malice. Mr. Speaker, it brings me to the initiatives that we have sought to put in place. As the public would be aware, the Ministry of Agriculture has responsibility for the Department of Agriculture, Department of Marine Resources, Department of Cooperatives, a land unit, regatta, and cultural desk. And we also have oversight for at least 3 authorities: the Bahamas Agricultural Health and Food Safety Authority, BAIC, the Bahamas Agriculture and Industrial Corporation, and then, of course, BAMSI, the Center of Agricultural Education in the Bahamas. We have 500 employees, Mr. Speaker, 500 team members, many of whom have labored through difficult circumstances over the course of the last year and a half in the midst of this pandemic. Some of them are even more long suffering, having been in a ministry that a country has not taken sufficiently serious in terms of the role it must play in ensuring food security and food sovereignty. Nevertheless, we accepted the challenge. And in accepting the challenge, Mr. Speaker, we had the obligation to look at the value chain and to ask the question, what hinders the Bahamas from exploding in this arena? Remember, $1 billion is up for grabs for entrepreneurs that are minded to generate revenue for their security and ultimately the security for the country. But the $1 billion, Mr. Speaker, is not the objective alone, because the $1 billion is what you save if you were able to achieve 100% import substitution. It is the billions that are left unrealized, because if you got it right in terms of reducing what you imported, you can now export and add additional revenue to your economy. And so, Mr. Speaker, the discussion today is to give a sense of what we can do and what we have been doing to get us there. Mr. Speaker, as we look at the value chain from pre-production to post-harvest, we saw a number of gaps, things that hindered our ability to achieve food security and food sovereignty. And Mr. Speaker, I wish to unpack this issue by looking at each department and just some of the initiatives we have sought to put in place at a different time. Each of the detailed work of the departments we intend to release nationally. But for our purposes today, Mr. Speaker, I wish to have a candid conversation about what we can and what we have been doing by department to address this critical issue. Agriculture is really about life and death. It's about being able to provide opportunities so that families can have dignity in creating wealth for themselves or finding employment. It is also about making sure that we produce and consume the right types of foods so that we have the ability to fight non-communicable diseases that's killing our citizens every day. The former Minister of Health, more than 7 years ago, made a statement that we would come to a point in this country where we would be burying so many Bahamians with name, face recognition, whose lives are not any more valuable than any other citizen, but it is the shock value that occurs, and that they would be dying from non-communicable diseases, much of which are avoidable if we made right lifestyle choices, inclusive of eating the right types of food. And so, Mr. Speaker, when Minister Wells, the member for Bamboo-Town, and myself go to work, we go to work with that awareness that what we do every single day, whether exciting or mundane, it was towards saving lives. And so the gaps we discovered along the value chain, from pre-production, before the seed is planted, before the animal is in the embryonic stage, and post-harvest, after harvested, being packaged to be sold, we discovered that one issue that we had was the lack of access to those locations that sold food to Bahamians. This administration, Mr. Speaker, through an important policy decision, made a determination that from that day forward, the day we made the decision, that 40% of all foods that are sourced to be sold to Bahamians or to any portion of the 7 million tourists must be sourced from Bahamian producers. We also, Mr. Speaker, made the decision that since there is a tremendous amount of cynicism among Bahamians in general, my words, that it was important that the government have the moral authority to make such a demand on the private sector, to embed this provision in every head of agreement, and therefore the government must lead by example. And so what was also decided is that 75 cents of every dollar that is to be spent on purchasing food, whether through the Public Hospital Authority, through the Department of Corrections, through National Security, through the Ministry of Education, they must also purchase from Bahamian producers. So, Mr. Speaker, the farmer today, the fisher today, has a reasonable expectation and has a right to say that if they are approaching organizations, restaurants, food stores, retail or wholesale, cruise ships or hotels, they have a reasonable right and expectation that those agencies should satisfy at a minimum 40% of their purchase should come from Bahamian producers. It may not be that single producer, but the quantum, the combination of whomever they buy from, certainly at a minimum should be 40%. There are some caveats. In other words, one, the price has to make sense. Two, there has to be sustainability, consistency of production and supply. No excuses. And three, the quality has to be world-class. The Department of Agriculture, the Policy and Planning Division, led by in our discussions with hotels, restaurants, cruise ships, led by the member for Charlotte, we were all pleasantly surprised to see the receptiveness with which hotels made a commitment to purchase from Bahamian producers, even upwards of 40%, as long as we are working with reasonable price points, quality, and consistency of supply. So I'm saying to every farmer and fisher that if you have in your inventory items that you have produced, put us to the challenge to be your partner in ensuring that you have access to the market. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Agriculture, in looking at the value chain, looking at the supply chain, identifying the gaps and determining that we're going to fill them, has done several very important things to make sure that we set this country on the right path. I've said before, it is important to this administration that there is continuity in government. No one political party that emerges as government has the single blueprint for the development and the future of this country. Therefore, continuity is important. And toward that end, my predecessor and myself made it a point to consult with the opposition and with independents consistently on important initiatives, whether it was legislative policy programs or, in some cases, projects, to gain feedback on whether or not the path we were considering was a reasonable one, was not disruptive, and was in the interest of the Bahamas. One of the things we agreed on, that if we were going to plug the gap that exists on the value chain, the supply chain, we needed to build the capacity of Bahamians. And this is true across the ministry and across the government. And so we set out to put in place a master matrix in the ministry so that whether you were talking about BAMSI, we wanted to put in place a series of short and long-term courses that would build the capacity of our farmers, of our fishers, of our manufacturers. And so we worked with regional and international organizations. We worked with local organizations to ensure that those agencies where we seek to supply food or processed items, that we were meeting their criteria. In other words, we were compliant, the farmers were compliant, the fishers were compliant. So good agricultural practices is a designation often required by those who would purchase from Bahamians. Secondly, having HACCP certification as well to ensure that the way in which we harvest, handle, process, grade, package our food, that it meets the strictest international standards. Good manufacturing practices. And so for those operations that have been successfully operating in the Bahamas, who are supplying to the brands, that is, whether it's the Atlantis brand or the Bahama brand or a wholesale or food store, they have had to meet some stringent requirements, have the proper labeling, and the ministry assists and guides farmers, fishers, value-added food processors, guide them on how to ensure that your labels accurately reflect what is inside your food, and to offer courses that build the capacity of our citizens so that they can produce the items that are demanded. We recognize that if the agricultural sector is to succeed, it must move beyond us producing what we are capable, accustomed to, or like to produce, and instead must produce what the market demands. So building capacity is important, and that is precisely why we've worked with CARDI, the agriculture arm of CARICOM, and NAICA, the agriculture arm of the Organization of American States, with the Food and Agriculture Organization, with IDB, in offering courses in a wide range of areas. In agriculture, I've mentioned a few. We've also participated in regional courses along with the Israeli government through the Volcani Institute on smart agriculture, ensuring that the new generation of farmers that may not be interested in open field, 3,000-acre operations, but who are interested in hydroponics, in aquaponics, and using polytunnels, and the value of using sensors so you can determine whether or not you have the correct moisture in the soil while you're at home, and can then trigger your irrigation system on your cell phone. We wanted to engage in those kinds of courses. And Bahamians, in conjunction with government and independent of government, are engaging in those kinds of courses. We've worked with universities around the world who have, in fact, offered in many instances to hold joint courses, webinars, workshops with the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, we have a cadre of agriculturalists in the Bahamas who are learning, in our estimation, at a faster rate than their predecessors, who understand what global agriculture looks like, and they are seeking to shorten this learning curve by jumping in much further than their parents or their predecessors did. And so, Mr. Speaker, capacity building is one crucial part of our work, and not just for the farmer or the fisher or the manufacturer, but also for staff of the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources and all of the agencies that attach to us. And not just the technical staff, but the administrative staff. And so we're grateful to the Minister with responsibility for public service for the offering of courses that they continue to give in order to build the capacity of Bahamians. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Agriculture did some additional things. One is we've sought to speed up the pace at which a potential agribusiness person is able to access the farmer's registration. So we've put in place a provisional license. In other words, rather than hold up someone who intends to import some items that will be important inputs for the agriculture business, rather than hold them up because the land matter has not been sorted out, but in principle they have been given permission, we believe that they should get a provisional registration, which would allow them to take advantage of duty-free import of some of the inputs for agriculture that they desire. Are we there yet? No. We still, in our view, have some bottlenecks that we're working out. One, for example, we ask that some of our family island farmers, you can now online apply directly for your registration, which then cuts out at least one leg of that journey in terms of going through the administrator's office. So we are seeking to find faster ways in order for our farmers, our fishers, those persons involved in light manufacturing, for them to receive what is required from the ministry in order for them to do business in the Bahamas. So we're speeding up some of our processes. The other thing we're seeking to do is to increase the extension services. And Cabinet has approved the plan that we have submitted as a result of the IDB study to expand our extension services. So the Associated Farmers Program, which used to be attached to BAMSI, it is our intention to ensure that all extension services will be supervised by the Department of Agriculture. It makes no sense to the Bahamian farmer that at the point they are applying for an increase in the acreage that they utilize, that we now have to determine whether or not they have been farming on the land. An effective extension service would have predetermined whether or not the land was being used for the desired purpose. And so when they apply, it is just a question on, do they have the capacity to utilize the additional land that will be made available to them? And so the expansion of our extension services, which is funded in this budget, will take place. We will hire an overall extension coordinator who we fully expect to give regular reports on their findings. In fact, in the Bahamas, we've had a misuse of the people's land for a wide variety of purposes, and that has in part been because of the poor choices and sometimes dishonest choices of citizens, but it has also been because of the negligence of government in that we have not properly monitored and enforced the law on the proper use of agricultural land. We are fixing that through the extension services, the clear monitoring, and then the cataloging of what is being done on land allocated throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The Department of Agriculture is also working diligently to conduct the requisite studies so that the extension officers can be in a position to recommend to farmers the best breed of animals to grow. Secondly, the best variety of seeds or cuttings to utilize. And of course, assisting them with making sure that the choices that they make are also the choices that are being demanded by the market. And so I wish to applaud all of those stakeholders that have been working in tandem with each other to ensure that we dramatically ramp up production, because after all, 40% guaranteed in the private sector that will be purchased from Bahamians, 75% guaranteed that will be purchased by government. Let's put government to the test in its commitment to ensure that you have market access. The Gladstone Road Research Center is one example of a facility that has been put in place so that we could study what are the best breed of swine to grow, what are the best breeds of small ruminants, sheep and goats, so that we are able to supply the private sector, farmers, with the best animals and with the best methods, techniques, and food so that they are able to put on the required weight in order to serve this market. Mr. Speaker, we believe that we are on the right road in this regard. Are we moving at the pace necessary? No, we have more work to do in this regard. And so the Gladstone Road Research Center, Mr. Speaker, is in fact utilizing the space to conduct a wide range of studies. And we thank Cardi for assisting in the sweet potato studies, the cassava studies, which are done both at Gladstone Road as well as in North Andros at Barmsey, and then in turn distributing the slips as well as the cassava sticks throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We believe that the Bahamas can transition from using an inordinate amount of rice to other tuber crops that have the required nutrients we need. We believe cassava holds huge potential in this regard, not just to make flour, but to fuel our liqueur industry. We are now in discussions with companies with a view of getting Bahamian private sector agribusiness persons to produce cassava with the right protein content so that the beers that some of us drink with great regularity, not me, I'm a rattler man, 2%, which, Mr. Speaker, is less than Geritol and SS Tonic that has 12% alcohol. Rattlers only have 2%. God is pleased. And so we are looking to cultivate those crops that can supply the liqueur industry in the Bahamas, much like it's done in Haiti, much like it's done in Jamaica, and we are benefiting from best practices in this region by talking to our colleagues and talking with those experts that can facilitate this. And so the Department of Agriculture is engaged, along with BAMSI, in critical studies on a wide range of crops. Mr. Speaker, the additional thing that the Department of Agriculture is doing is working with the veterinarian services and the animal scientists that they have in the midst of this pandemic to provide advice and assistance to our livestock farmers. Mr. Speaker, we haven't always gotten it right. And sometimes, again, the pace at which we respond sometimes have been challenging. And for that, we apologize to any farmer, any fisher, any manufacturer where we have not lived up to your expectation. We intend to work harder. We recognize that we are employed by you. But the veterinarians have been quite diligent in trying to plug whatever gaps exist in order to give advice, practical service, the application of medication where it is in fact needed. Mr. Speaker, another pivotal policy decision by this administration has been to make sure that studies that have been conducted that yield sensible recommendations are implemented. As a result of the FAO study that occurred right after Dorian, we made a determination in cabinet that we are going to create the infrastructure and ecosystem where livestock development, livestock farming in the Bahamas can thrive. Mr. Speaker, I wish to say to farmers, this is a demanding task ahead. It is absolutely necessary that all of us participate. It's important that farmers work with the Department of Cooperatives so that you can operate in a cooperative to be in charge of the sector that helps to feed your family, to grow wealth for you in the country of your birth. Cooperatives have had challenges in the Bahamas in almost every area because of a cultural impediment we have, a refusal to work in tandem with each other. Here's why it's important. In our commitment, Mr. Speaker, to grow the livestock sector, one of the things that we decided in cabinet was to do this. One, we will privatize the abattoir. We are looking for Bahamians who are willing to take the lead, and preferably farmers and agribusiness persons, in entering into a public-private partnership with the government in running the abattoir. And then secondly, we will provide land in the various family islands so that you are able to develop slaughterhouses which will be supervised by veterinarians and the Bahamas Agricultural Health and Food Safety Authority. Having a national slaughterhouse system now approved by Cabinet will be transformative for the development of livestock farming in the Bahamas. We will be in a position not only to guarantee the safety of our food, but we would also be in a position to have value-added products. So for those of you that like cold cuts, whether it's turkey, poultry, pork, or any other of the proteins, small ruminants, you can have it available. Those of you that eat hot dogs, again, we can produce all of these items. And so the creation of a national slaughterhouse system / processing facility can do that for us. The other policy decision made by government that also affects this is that we have also agreed that the state-owned operations, the state-owned enterprises, have not only been a drag on government limited resources, the enterprises have also not been run effectively and efficiently by government. And we often don't like to say it, but the truth is, in the hands of competent, well-resourced agribusiness persons, we can end the nightmare that has been the nightmare for livestock farmers in not getting adequate feed on a consistent basis from a feed mill that has outlived its usefulness in the hands of government. And so I'm grateful to my colleagues for supporting that we will also, apart from the abattoir, we will enter into a public-private arrangement on the feed mill. We have had persons express interest, and the group that was successful at the end did have some challenges in terms of financing. And so there are several groups that are now having a conversation with the government. We would welcome that group to also return to the table. But we are ready to do that, and we expect to complete that process hopefully by the end of the summer. The third important thing that we've made a determination on is there ought to be a public-private partnership on all of the packing houses in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The packing houses in their present configuration, serving the present purpose of buying from farmers, selling to whomever, or keeping the residual that many times spoil, that we've outlived that usefulness. We believe our role is to so empower, so build the capacity of farmers that they can go to market directly. But for those that are accustomed to going through the packing house, that we will buy from them. And then, of course, you can process or you can distribute. But that's still less than ideal. So the ideal situation is to put the packing houses in the hands of private actors who will function as distributors. So we have gotten approval. We are now at the stage, we've passed the stage of letter of interest. We're now looking for proposals of those agribusiness persons or others who are interested in running the packing houses either individually or collectively. And the goal is, in our estimation, you can also add a processing facility to the packing house or in close proximity to the packing house, so that those items that are overripe, you're able to use for processing. But more importantly, processing isn't just about taking the excess. Many farmers will produce just for the purpose of processing and will choose the correct varieties that are better suited for processing. And so those three items are extremely important to this administration. We have been talking about public-private partnerships for ages as it relates to state-owned enterprises. It is our intention as a government to get it done without disadvantaging farmers, the livestock producers. You will not be disadvantaged with the feed mill being in private hands, especially if it is in your hands. And resources are now available that will help you to acquire the feed mill, the abattoir, the packing houses. The interest has been keen in this regard. So, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Agriculture is busy. We are in the process of advertising for additional positions, technical positions in the Department of Agriculture. The team is largely overworked, and so we are appealing to agronomists, chemists, biochemists, and others to get involved. Make sure that you build a country that is your country. And so for those of you that have children off to school, we welcome them back home to be a part of transforming this sector. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Cooperative have been very active in traveling throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, working with different departments within the ministry and outside the ministry to cultivate this spirit of cooperation among producers. Mr. Speaker, we are not wedded to one structure as it relates to cooperative. We say to farmers, to fishers, you may wish to form a limited liability company that you all can work in tandem with each other to accomplish a common goal. It does not have to be the traditional structure, but it is important that we work in tandem with each other. Here's a practical reason why. One of the criteria for hotels, restaurants, food stores, cruise ships to buy is consistency of supply. One producer can have a hiccup, or two or three producers can have a hiccup in their operation on one day, 1 week, and then there's a disruption in the supply. However, if we are a part of a consortium with 10, 15, 20 practitioners, a disruption among 2 or 3 of them would not adversely affect the operation. And so it is in our collective interest to work together cooperatively. It's like in government. If we wish to succeed, it is important that we work cooperatively so that if someone is not clicking on all cylinders, others are able to pick up the slack and to make sure what we promise we are in fact delivering. And so the Department of Cooperative have been working with a number of cooperatives throughout the Bahamas, and we are growing the number of youth cooperatives as well. One of the projects we are most proud of is a project that is supervised by BAIC in conjunction with CADI, the BEST Commission, the Department of Forestry, and of course, the GEF Fund, the Global Environmental Fund. Collectively, all of these agencies are working on the exciting Cascarilla project in Maikal. Maikal today has the largest cooperative in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I believe some 315 members in this cooperative. As you know, Cascarilla is used in perfumes, in liqueurs that some colleagues and others may drink. It is also used.
Only the red one. Only the red one.
It's also used in other products as well. And the truth is, we have produced the bar and we have historically exported the bar. We are now looking for other ways to add value to those operations so that the farmers can earn 10 times as much as what they're earning by simply sending the raw material out of the country. And so we have had a substantial investment from the GEF Fund, a substantial investment from government, both in kind and actual cash, in order to build facility so that we could extract the oil from the Cascarilla in order to make sure that we enter the market at a different level beyond just the raw material of the bar. And so I'm really excited. We are really excited about this project in Maikal. We believe it's going to pay dividends for those families involved. It is a part of the wider Pine Island project, which will also look at pine in other islands and the benefits they can accrue to residences in those various islands. The Prime Minister was adamant that this is a project that he is going to be fully on board with, and towards that end has committed 105 acres of Crown land to ensure that the Cascarilla is in fact sustainable, and that is made available to the communities that are engaged in this project. And so thank you to all of those agencies that are involved. The video for the project has recently been launched. And so take a look at it. Take a look at one of the niche markets. This is also an opportunity for agro-tourism, where persons can travel from other countries and to look at this historical process used by Bahamians in harvesting, treating, manufacturing the cascarilla barks, and now going further in extracting the cascarilla oil. And so we're grateful for that. The additional project that the Department of Cooperatives, the Department of Agriculture is going to be intimately involved in is another project approved by Cabinet recently. And that project is the Agro Village. We made a determination in the Department of Agriculture and Policy and Planning as we looked at best practices around the world. What kind of initiatives are working that would help us do several things all at once? An initiative that would help us collect data, because data should drive not just the decision of policymakers, data should also drive the decision of investors. If more investors are going to invest in agriculture, it is important that they know that agriculture is a profitable proposition. And so collecting data on the front end on what is required, and then collecting data on the back end once the product is produced is important in order for investors, for agribusiness persons to look seriously at the agriculture sector, the light manufacturing sector. So the Agro Village is really a cluster of smart farms. That is, various productive systems, some persons producing fruits, some producing vegetables, some producing seasonings, bush tea, not yet medicinal, some producing eggs, some producing meat, etc. All of these composting, wood chip, mulch, all of these productive systems, processed foods, processed drinks, all of them working in one village. So Cabinet has approved that we will produce 6 agro villages on 6 different islands in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. The first 2 will be in New Providence and Grand Bahama. This month, we expect to break ground, not later than July, to break ground on the first 25 to 40 acres on Gladstone Road. The land has already been identified. It's already been surveyed. And all we are waiting on now is for the release of funds so that the heavy equipment operators can hit the ground. We are working in tandem in New Providence with the Volcani Institute, the leading NGO in Israeli agriculture. They are on board. We are also going to have in the Agro Village, for example, a fab lab, which will be really state-of-the-art laboratory with computers and smart technology that farmers and agribusiness persons can use in order to upscale their operation, to be in contact with countries or agencies or individuals around the world to gain best practices from them. The Food and Agriculture Organization in Rome has committed to help us setting it up. IECA in Costa Rica has already signed on as one of the partners, and so has CADI. And so we are grateful to all of the international agencies that see this as something that is potentially very powerful. Dionisio de Aguilar, the member for Freetown, and myself participated in a high-level discussion with IECA, as well as with the head of the United Nations World Tourism Organization, to look at the Agro Village as an example, a model of what they can replicate in other countries to solidify the link between agriculture and tourism. We see it as an agro-tourism destination, where tourists, much like students on the educational front, will come and basically come through a welcome center. And by the way, in this budget, we've allocated the funds, $2.9 million for the welcome centers, the one in Grand Bahama as well as in New Providence. You come in, you have a retail space where you can buy items that are produced in the village. You have the Fab Lab, you have rooms for workshops. You have 2 stalls where you're able to buy agriculture technology, whether it's a portable weather station, irrigation system, sensors, drones, etc., or software for farm management, and so on and so forth. Imagine for a moment, it's much like the theme parks we tend to go to as Bahamians. You go to the Welcome Center, then you're out into the village. That is a biosecurity bubble protecting those persons within, making sure if there's a challenge in, it doesn't go out. And so we are excited about this space. That's an agro-tourism space. That's an educational space for students from K all the way to university level. And it is also a space where people will realize their dreams, not just for them, but for their children yet born. And so we are excited about these 6 agro villages in Grand Bahama. We are working with the Grand Bahama Port Authority, more in particular, working with Rupert Haywood, working with a Bahamian group that is engaged in smart agriculture, working with their partners out of Holland to make sure that we have, much like in Nassau, a solar power that is available to drive these agriculture operations, a water system as well that you are able to utilize on site. And so the Agri Park, which is going to be the agro village that is going to be constructed in Grand Bahama, while we're working with the Israelis in New Providence and Grand Bahama, we'll primarily be working with those companies that have perfected a greenhouse production in Holland. And so we are excited about these operations. We believe they will pay dividend. And the primary technology we will be using would be greenhouse technology. The value chain that I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation discovered a very important gap that we needed and are now fixing, and that is the seasonality of Bahamian crops. In this agro village, one of the things we are seeking to do is to extend the growing life of various crops year round, so that you don't have onions for a set time or tomatoes or green peppers, etc., but you have it year round. And that is precisely why we worked with the Policy and Planning Division and the Department of Agriculture to import 100 green hydroponic systems, and we have distributed those, not just to agribusiness persons, but also to schools. And so Minister Lloyd, the member for South Beach, was adamant that he wants his schools to be fully engaged in the agriculture process, not only theory, but in practicality. And therefore, we have been implementing or installing aquaponics and hydroponic systems. We are now working on a project in Grand Bahama. We've just finished one of the junior schools. We are now moving into Jack Haywood Senior, who has an aquaponic system. We will also put a hydroponic system there. But 8 schools in Grand Bahama will, by the fall, we would have implemented all of their hydroponic and aquaponic system. The goal is really to hit somewhere in the vicinity of the 150 schools in terms of hydroponic and aquaponic systems. And so the agro village is going to be a study in how you get it right in agriculture. It will represent a microcosm of just a subset of the overall country to demonstrate what is possible. We've already put in an order for an additional 150 hydroponic systems, which we expect to be on the island shortly. And so we are excited about these initiatives because they will change the way we do agriculture. Around the world, young people are generally not interested in the large-scale, out-of-doors agriculture, unless, for example, it's mechanized or you're utilizing new technologies in order to make it happen. The Bahamas, though disadvantaged by how much we presently import, we do have the advantage of seeing what has worked in other jurisdictions, and we are jumping into this agriculture business at a higher level, given what we have learned being a part of these international meetings, talking with other countries, multilateral organizations that have in fact gotten it right. Mr. Speaker, so the Department of Cooperative is very important. The Department of Agriculture, the Policy and Planning Division is helping us roll out the agro villages. We're also, Mr. Speaker, excited about the work being done by the Policy and Planning Division, bunch of very smart young people. Mr. Speaker, the young Bahamians are very restless. They are not interested in doing things the traditional way, and we can make any excuse we want or even give appropriate explanations for why we are moving slow. They are not on that run. And the Policy and Planning Division is probably the best example I can think of. A bunch of smart folks, statisticians, chartered accountants, persons who are schooled in agroecology, who've worked at international multilateral organizations, whom now helping us do several things along with BAIC and BAMSI. One, they're conducting important surveys. In other words, now that we are guaranteeing market access, it's important to know what does the farmer, the value added, or the food processor have in their inventory. So we've been conducting a number of important surveys to plug the data gap. So when we talk to Atlantis, with whom we now have a working relationship, we want to be in a position to say how much of a particular item is going to be produced in the month of July, August, September, the amount, the frequency with which we will have it produced, and the price point that we can come in at. The Policy and Planning Division, along with BAIC, they are helping us execute in this regard. So we are taking a scientific approach to this. And again, we expect that it's going to pay dividends for our farmers. The other thing that we're doing, along with BAIC and the Policy and Planning Division, is designing a market information systems database, so that if you're a student and you need data on agriculture in the Bahamas, how much arable land we have, where the water lens is, how many hydroponic systems are operating in commercial operations in the Bahamas, what are the pieces of legislation that could benefit your operation, you could go to this management information system and find it. If you're an investor and you want to know what the potential is for me to get a return on my investment, this management information system will also help you. If you're a policy maker and you need some data in order that you can share information with the general public, again, this gives you an opportunity to do that. And so we have the money in this budget in order to make that happen. The work commenced under the last budget cycle, and we are going to continue it now. The Policy and Planning Division also organized, I think, the largest number of stakeholder consultations that has probably ever been held in the Bahamas on a wide range of subjects. So they're working with multilateral organizations that I've already identified in this presentation, and they are getting Bahamians to engage in these discussions at a very high level. And so the UN Food Systems Conference, again, we're having discussions with stakeholders to get their input. We've done the same thing when we were looking at composting. 5 different islands benefited from the composting workshops organized by IECA. And so persons are now finding opportunities for employment generation through composting, but they are also finding a way to take some of the waste product that they have and throw away every day and create compost that provides fertilizer in their own house. In fact, just this past weekend in Grand Bahama, we looked at how to use organic material to produce methane gas. So rather than buying your gas, you can in fact produce it by much of the waste that you tend to throw out routinely. Well, quietly, it isn't politically sexy. There's no major controversy that make journalists titillate, but it is transformative in terms of helping families and businesses to actually grow opportunities for them. And these are the kinds of things that are happening. We run an egg layer program. Think about this for a moment. People are producing their own eggs 365 days out of the year. So in the same way, you can use organic matter to produce gas for you and your family. And so that smelly thing that comes from the swine or some of the other animals have potential for revenue generation. It could make you stinking rich. And so I'm just saying that sorry, I couldn't resist it. I was fighting it and it just kept coming. So I think we have some wonderful opportunities. So the layer program, we have brought in well over 12,000 layer birds and distributed them along with the bedding and feed for farmers or farming enthusiasts who may develop a love for commercial farming throughout the Bahamas. And we've looked at the program, worked out some of the kinks as we went along, and we are now going to bring in an additional 12,000. So we've already placed order for additional chicks. We expect by year's end, we would have put in the market more than 20,000 layer birds that we will distribute. We've had a record number of private enterprises that have signed on to open poultry operations in the Bahamas. We are excited. We believe that over the course of the next 3 years, we can be self-sufficient in eggs. How much are we importing right now? Well, not much, 90-something percent. How about 98+%? But we have the ability to be self-sufficient in both poultry, meat, as well as eggs. And we have major players who've applied in Andros, New Providence, and Grand Bahama. Cabinet has approved 2 of those operations already. The third, the funds are being vetted to determine that the origin of funds are bona fide, but we fully expect to do something transformative in that space. I should mention, as I talk about the influx of agribusiness persons, that many of them are coming to the table not looking for funding. They just want us to identify what has the potential to generate revenue. So we have an influx of some serious business persons in order to make revenue as well as create opportunities for others in the agriculture space. Mr. Speaker, we believe, aside from the layer bird program, the hydroponics and aquaponics systems, that some of the other things we have laid the foundation for will transform and catalyze the agriculture sector. So for example, Mr. Speaker, as simple as the land clearing program. We spent over $1 million in the land clearing program, and it was more than just land clearing. We are now embarking on land preparation. So for some of the properties we cleared, we also ripped and walked those properties in order to create fertile soil for use by agribusiness persons. But this administration is so committed to doing something fundamentally different that we are now following something that was pursued by my colleague, my predecessor, and we have collectively now been able to get agreement on it. We are going to be able to touch 7 islands in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas with heavy equipment, tractor, tilling machine, rock crushers. It is going to fundamentally change our ability to help small and medium-sized farmers. One of the biggest constraints they have is ability to prepare the land for cultivation. It is a game changer for us, and I'm grateful for the support in this regard. The other thing that we have gotten full agreement on, has already gone through the tenders board, is we are going to set up on not less than 5 family islands, a processing facility in conjunction with the cooperative on that island. ISO certified lab where food processing will take place. In other words, we could talk all we want about making sure that we carve into that $400 million food bill of processed food. But unless we put the infrastructure and ecosystem in place, we're not going to achieve it. And to the credit of this administration, we have, in fact, gone ahead and approved the paper to ensure that we put in place these facilities on our family island. So here's what's different. One, food processors are often challenged getting simple things, additives, preservatives for their food, jars, packaging, a whole range of things. Some of the equipment as well. We are now empowered by Cabinet to buy a number of these items up front and release them in the smaller quantities that many of our food processors need. So we are going to do something very different in this regard. We're going to give a major jump start to family island food processors and assist them with labeling, laboratory services where they're able to test content. We are going to assist them with a system of traceability, because when you are providing food to many of the established brands, those brands want to know, where did you grow these items? How did you harvest these items? How did you process it? So we want to put our farmers as well as our processors in a position. The fishes are already there. Every fish or marine product processing facility in the Bahamas they got it. They understand traceability. They have their standard operating procedures, and they can produce the reports right away for you. But farmers and manufacturers, only a handful of our farmers and manufacturers have this detail. So we're going to assist them with the requisite software that they could generate their reports as a farmer, as a food processor, that they have the correct standard operating procedures in place, that they have an ISO certified lab so that you're able to tell Atlantis, Bahama, or any other place that you are selling that this food has been properly tested, the content that's reflected on the jar or the box is in fact what is inside. And so we are excited about what's going to happen in terms of value added products. And so we're grateful to the Policy and Planning Division, along with the Food Technology Lab, and of course BAIC and BAMSI, all of whom play a role in terms of processed food. And on that note, I wish to salute the Food Technology Lab, Mr. Daly and his entire team for the work that they have been doing in building capacity of food processors throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I also wish to point out that again, Cabinet approved another important policy position that will put us in good stead. We also agreed to establish a national laboratory system where the Department of Agriculture, the chemistry and the biochemistry lab, and the lab that also is able to look at the microbiology of a number of the items that we are using, will not be the only go-to lab for us. We are going to work in tandem with the lab at PHA. We're going to work with the University of the Bahamas. We're going to help in the sponsorship of courses so that you have a national laboratory system that has redundancies built in. So that if there is a concern about the findings at one of the labs, you are able to peer review. You're able to double check by going to one of the other labs. When we had problems, for example, with the count-borne illnesses, one of the things that we had to do is to go to the labs to test. So one lab was testing the human content, whether it came from top or bottom, to see what was in it. Then you had another lab that tests the actual mollusk. So we test different things. It's important to have a robust laboratory system that can test animal health, plant, as well as food. BASPA, for example, would then be able to utilize the lab in order to continue the studies that they have already been doing. You know, BASPA assisted the Bahamas. I heard a certain activist was talking things of which he was unfamiliar and was unrepentant even when informed. You know, BASPA has been testing a number of food that come into the Bahamas, have been able to determine the metal content and determine which should be on the shelf or not on the shelf. And that's one of the benefits of the authority that's led by the member for Charlotte. They have put in place a sanitary and phytosanitary regime that allows persons who engage in export, for example, to go online, and they are now familiar with the requirements of other countries that Bahamian producers wish to export to. So this is a game changer in the Bahamas, that we are able to go online, find out the requirements, satisfy the requirements online. Well, the reverse is also true, that if you wish to get one of the permits in order to export, import, some of those, just about all of those forms now, you can utilize online. And those that are not online, by end of summer, we fully expect to have all of them online. But again, it's so important that BASPA has access to laboratories that they can test food, they can test plants, they can test animals, just to make sure that we are safe as a country. All you need is one bad microbe or outbreak of disease in order to devastate not just the food sector, but the tourism sector. Because depending on what that microbe may be or particular disease, I think the doctors in here, they call it One Health, that animal health, plant health affects human health. So it is really a symbiotic relationship between these various organisms, human, plants, animals. And it's important that we have a proper sanitary and phytosanitary regime in place to make sure that we protect all concerned. And so, I wish to say to those in the Food Technology Lab, the Department of Cooperative, the Department of Agriculture, the Policy and Planning Division, how grateful we are for the work that they continue to do. And the same is true about the Department of Marine Resources that's doing a sterling job in terms of deploying additional vessels. I believe the Minister of National Security would give me permission to say that he's working diligently to make sure several of the vessels that he has at the Defense Force, I'm saying very slow for him to nod, in accordance, he will make available to the Department of Marine Resources so that we are able to continue to police near shore areas in Long Island, in Andros. Well, Bimini boat is on the way. Minister Edgecombe, we will deploy the vessel for Bimini in short order. But the very short order. This summer you'll have your vessel. And so we are grateful to be partnering with the Ministry of National Security. We have benefited. They've provided us with a number of the dinghies that we confiscated from Dominican vessels, not the big boats. They were sunk as promised. The smaller ones were made available to spongers, to fishers, to the National Dive Program, which the Department of Marine Resources has executed in conjunction with the Defense Force. We are running a National Dive Program to make sure we have available sufficient Bahamian divers to take advantage of our patrimony. And so last year, we had, the program was oversubscribed. This year, we have more than 64 participants. It's running not only in New Providence, it's running in Grand Bahama. Andros has a very serious demand as well, and so we're going to work with Andros. And so the Department of Marine Resources has been doing a stellar job. We've increased the complement of staff members. In fact, Cabinet approved 37. We've put in place more than half of those. We have 15 positions outstanding, and we know that Minister Roll and the Public Service Commission is going to move with tremendous haste to make sure we are able to have the additional staff members. And so we want to thank you in advance for making those staff members available for our Family Island communities. The Department of Marine Resources has also been working very closely with the fishers, consulting with them at every turn, so that when we make the decisions, it's based on consultation and also it's based on evidence, meaning we are collecting the requisite data. And so just to give a couple of very quick examples, we'll unpack this at a later date. We've been working with the various environmental groups, whether it's the Bahamas National Trust, the Nature Conservancy, BRIEF, etc. And here are some of the things that we're doing. One, we are now running a pilot that's funded by our partners to put vessel monitoring systems on board of small and larger vessels to determine which of the three that we have works best. And the goal really is that if a ship or a vessel is in distress, we need to know where they are. So we need vessel monitoring system. Also, we want to understand the pattern of behavior of those persons who are licensed fishers in terms of their movement. We want to make sure persons are not going into a marine protected area. So again, vessel monitoring system. We're also working on a marine action plan. Again, so that all of the enforcement agencies are working in tandem with each other to make sure we're sharing information. We're assisting in stamping out illegal, unregulated, reported fishing. And that's a more extensive program we'll talk about later. We're working closely with the Florida wildlife group that in fact, we find that in Florida, state officials are now checking their own citizens as they come back from the Bahamas to make sure that they are compliant. So the vessel that Minister of National Security is going to make available to the Department of Marine Resources, there is a vessel that is going to be donated by one such American who was convicted, and a part of the penalty is that they will donate a vessel. And so again, the Department of Marine Resources is working very closely with our partners in the environmental movement to conduct a number of studies. Another study we're conducting is to look at how to manage each individual marine species. One requirement, colleagues, one requirement of the new fisheries bill that has been introduced is that we ought to know the status of our environmental stock. We ought to know the status of it. Do we have sufficient of this particular species to sustainably harvest it, not just for this generation, but for generations to come. We already have the MSC, the Marine Stewardship Council designation for spiny lobster. We know that grouper and conch are at risk. And therefore, we have now made adjustments in some of the regulations relative to them. Next year, there will be zero export of conch. We do not believe that we have the quantity sufficient to secure us for the future unless we take action now. Just ask Florida, ask most of our neighbors to the south. They no longer have sufficient conch in certain localities for reproductive purposes. Do we have areas where there's a lot of conch? Of course. Do we have a lot of traditional areas where we do not? Of course. The same thing is true about the grouper. The grouper, unfortunately, those aggregates, that is the big groups that they gather into to mate, we are finding that the thousands and thousands of grouper in these aggregates are no longer a reality in a number of those key locations. They've been attacked by persons, no doubt, trying to sustain their families, and we're sympathetic to them, but it has not helped us for the long term. And so we are going to increase the size of the grouper in order to make sure that only mature groupers are in fact harvested. Because you know, some people, they look a certain age, but after sentencing, you recognize that, right? So it's important we be clear. With the count, we are measuring the lip thickness of the count. This is why we've had discussion. Colleagues, work with me, please.
No,
this is
no.
And so we believe that the only way to determine the age of a conch, for example, is to look at the lip thickness. And so because a shell is big isn't sufficient. And that's why one of the provisions that will come into play is that we will be requiring over time, and we will talk with fishers just before we implement it, that conch must be landed in the shell. And in fact, we are removing conch from the bycatch. So if you're visiting the Bahamas and you're enjoying the Bahamas, you cannot catch conch any longer as a part of your bag limit. You have to come off the vessel and basically go onshore in order to buy it. And so again, the Department of Marine Resources, they're doing, I think, a stellar job on so many levels. The other thing that they're doing in terms of studies is they're also working with some of our NGOs to look at what are some of the alternative livelihoods for fishers. Sometimes you can make more money watching fish than catching fish. And so we're getting some fishers are now pivoting to get into sort of marine resources / tourism. And so here is something that created a bit of excitement over the past few months. We made a determination that so important, so challenged, and at risk is Bahamian patrimony that we needed to reserve it for Bahamians. That caused a bit of controversy. It is my understanding that a recent challenge was made in court that did not succeed relative to the position we took. We know that there's another action that's coming. We certainly welcome that. And we maintain that what we ought to do in this government system, speed up the process of anybody who apply to make sure no family is disadvantaged in terms of their status. However, we also reserve the right that in areas where there is scarce resources being exploited, persons pursuing loopholes, that we reserve the right to dedicate a sector for Bahamians. We believe in an open economy. The Bahamas, by and large, is an open economy, but there are certain things we ought to carve out for us, and we make no apologies for that dimension of it. And so I wish to salute the Department of Marine Resources for the stellar work that they have done. Let me turn quickly to talk about BAIC and BAMSI, two agencies that have been doing an incredible job, we believe. But there's more work to be done. No doubt we need to finish the campus. It's more than 90% complete. It's in the portfolio of the member for North Andros, who has been doing a yeoman's job in his constituency and overseeing that portfolio and who fights for his people. I mean, the member for North Andros petitions you on a regular basis to make sure that his people, and his people don't have any particular color, but his people are in fact taken care of. And every time we crack a joke every now and again to say, sir, we don't run an employment agency. I just want you to know. but he makes no apologies. He makes no apologies for fighting for Androsi and for Mangrove Key. I tell him, you don't represent Mangrove Key, but for Mangrove Key, all the way north, he is constantly fighting for his people, and so we're grateful for his contribution. But Bamsi is doing a stellar job in offering, I mentioned earlier, a wide range of courses. This summer will be no different. And so we want to applaud the work that Dr. Hanna and the team is doing in putting these courses on, in signing memorandums of understanding with colleges and entering into practical arrangements with them so that Bahamians could in fact benefit. We want to congratulate the students who had a virtual graduation last year, who are gearing up for it again this year, for being focused and who represent the best of what this country has produced. They are examples of Bahamian excellence. And I wish to remind all colleagues when talking about the incredible work done by the Minister of Education and the Prime Minister in making tuition free for Bahamian students, both at BTVI and UB. Do not forget BAMSI. It has been done for BAMSI also. So those are the three institutions, and we want to hear BAMSI with great regularity that you talk about BTVI and University of the Bahamas. That's what was done. And so new courses in agronomy. For those who don't know, I studied agronomy. It is, people disbelieve that I studied agronomy so much. In the yearbook, they used to put at Tuskegee, they used to put astrology. But agronomy is simply plant and soil science. I did happen to do an associate's degree in agriculture from COB, now UB, a bachelor's in agronomy, plant and soil science, and I did some graduate courses in agricultural economics at McGill, but in Canada, I mostly majored in protests on the street. But the point, it's an interesting thing when you've been arrested in demonstrations in 3 countries. Bahamas, you go to Tuskegee. One time, I think we had occupied the administration building and the SWAT team was outside waiting on us. And then go to Canada, and I've been involved in a number of demonstrations. And so, and that's precisely why it's easy to walk across the street when unions are demonstrating, because you've lived that life and you understand the tendency to raise your voice when you believe something needs to be done for your constituents. And I applaud that activism. And we embrace that activism. And again, it's an equal opportunity protest. They protest against the PLP and a protest against the FNM. So none of us should really take it personal. Unlike politicians, the leaders are looking to be reelected. So that's just a part of the reality. So, but BAMSI is not just going to be confined in the new year to Andros. They are looking at staff. They're looking at a number of locations where they will set up a space where studies can be conducted, and whether these are institutions from overseas or in the Bahamas, persons who wish to conduct clinical field trials, in order for us to better advise farmers and fishers, they are going to be involved in it. BAIC continues to lead the way in building the capacity of artists and artisans. They are transforming the Soldier Road space. They are managing the space that they have out west to make sure that they are able to get more entrepreneurs in. What we have to do is speed up the process of allocating the land in Eleuthera so that more entrepreneurs who've applied can be benefited. We accept we have not moved fast enough. That will change. In fact, we have been working in the Department of Agriculture in the land unit in signing off on the forms to give permission to the granting of leases. So just to give you an example, in Grand Bahama, between 62 and 100 of those letters have been signed, anywhere from 3 acres to 5 acres. In some cases, we've actually had folks with 10 acres. And then we're going to have some huge ones based on some of the applications made recently. In Andros, again, largely because of the constant petitioning of the member from North Andros, we have persons of all colors, politically and otherwise, have been able to get more than 100, again, lease arrangements that are in the works for them. So the way it works is we then send you an approval in principle, get the land surveyed, here are the conditions. Once you've done that, get back to us. Once we are satisfied, we then issue a lease. New Providence, the same thing. We have been involved in the resumption of some of the land in New Providence for persons who have not farmed the land literally for over 10 years. And so when we're able to catch it, that is before they build a roadside garage, a church, an apartment, etc. When we're able to catch it, we are now resuming the land, making it available to others. So we do now have some land in New Providence. We've signed off on a number of those leases as well. So it's in train. And so we're going to do that because it makes no sense for governments to be holding on to a land if you have a viable proposal in front of you that can empower Bahamians. So this business of micromanaging, it is a drag on the ease of doing a business. It is a disincentive to entrepreneurs. And so we are determined as an administration to do better in this regard. It's not our land, it's your land, and we want to make it available under some conditions. And so Mr. Speaker, BAIC is helping us with the management information system. They are building capacity of artists and artisans. They are looking at innovative proposals in order to allocate land. So Bishop Colley, the general manager, and all that team, they are working in tandem with each other to catalyze business development. And so I want to just shift very briefly to make an announcement. And I share this announcement with Minister Lewis, who is not here today, and of course, Minister Wells and Minister Gray and Minister Algernon Allen and Minister George Smith, Minister Tennyson Wells, who unfortunately has passed. All of these men were determined to ensure that sailing became the national sport of the Bahamas. And in their several ways, they have talked about it. Obviously, they have had significant influence on the Prime Minister in this regard. And I'm not certain the Prime Minister knows how to operate a sloop. But I certainly know.
He's from Baintown.
He's from Baintown. No sloops in Baintown. Okay, no sloop. But I certainly know that he appreciates, as does the leader of the opposition and the deputy leader, both of whom are on record as supporting sailing as the national sport. And we recognize that sailing is a part of our DNA. It is a part of our history and identity as a people. These sloops were used for work, for transportation, and people are so creative that, and they know life is so stressful that even after work and travel, they found a way to play. And we've had several classes of sloop. We've had, again, those that have competed on the international level. This is why we say sailing, and we don't confine it to any one category. Who have competed, who have put us on the map. So Durban, a Simonette who is not present in the House of Assembly today. I don't know if the member for St. Anne's, he hasn't been sailing. I'm being told he hasn't been. So he has asked me to convey to the minister not to speak of what he doesn't know. And so the Simonettes, as a family, it appears to be a sailing family. So again, we've had persons on an international level who have put the country. Oh, okay, well, what happened to the rest of us? I mean, send a ticket. So again, COVID. So what we have, colleagues, is an area that has woven the Bahamas together. We are a big ocean state, not merely a small island state. And we have found a way to make recreation out of what has sustained communities, which has been sailing. And again, regatta is one component of sailing, which has provided millions of dollars in so many communities across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Both the on-sea and onshore activities have become a part of our folklore in the Bahamas. And so, again, we've made a determination as a cabinet. The Prime Minister will have more to say about this later, so I'm going to stop there. Just to say, I want to thank all the federations. We polled the various federations in the country, and the vast majority of them, more than 75% of them, agreed or offered a no objection. And so we are grateful to all of the association. We took the time, we consulted with the opposition, all of the ministers who I spoke to, with the exception of Tennyson, again, gave their support. And of course, we spoke with the federations. It was important to have a conversation with them and with the Bahamas Olympic Committee. I remember having a discussion with the Secretary General of the committee, and what is one of the wonderful things that is going to happen, and I won't preempt them, is they're looking to create a space for all the sports federations in the country. And what will be beautiful about that is the consideration is being given to using in the design of a motif of a vessel, whether it's out in the front of the building or into the building. And so again, lots of exciting things are happening. We will continue to support festivals through the ministry as well, and we're grateful. We're grateful to all of our stakeholders who have partnered with us. I want to say to the fishers that the cabinet has approved the compressor, the use to give the minister the authority to utilize the compressor, but not just yet, colleagues. We have to amend the legislation. So for those of you that have called to ask if you can go out to see and use it, until you have the legislation that have been amended, me giving you permission will not necessarily aid you if there is a hefty fine. And much like COVID fines, I am unable to pay the fisheries fine. I'm a spearfisher. I love spearfishing. But I am so afraid of the penalties that are with the new fisheries bill. I am uncertain if I miss the correct fish and hit the other, you would have a fisheries minister in trouble. I don't go fishing. But as I wrap up, Mr. Speaker, I believe I have 30 minutes and 32 minutes. I just want to turn my attention to a couple of matters that I've heard in this place that just caused me a bit of concern that I thought I ought to address. Mr. Speaker, Bahamians, by way of the Speaker, we've become a very tribalistic country, and it's very unfortunate. The reason being that there are several things that afflict us as a country that does not stop the pause to check our political DNA. Violence is one of them, and thank God, under this administration, it has gone down. But it's the Bahamians that have made a determination to behave differently. Non-communicable diseases is another affliction that affects us. It does not check to see who you voted for in the last election before it afflicts you. And so a comprehensive health strategy is important, and I would think a sitting government as well as an opposition would want to find common ground in the midst of a pandemic. The third thing I can think about is poverty, and many Bahamians are hurting today. In the constituency I have the great honor of representing, a number of constituents are hurting. There are some who would love to convince those that are hurting that this hurt did not predate 2017. Yeah. So the way that is qualified is to say, never before in the history of the Bahamas has this happened. Okay, fine. So sequentially in terms of time, no, we've never been here before. But that same argument is not applied when we say, never before in the history of the world, we have had an administration who faced the worst natural disaster and a global pandemic that has evaporated more than $6 billion out of the economy. They don't talk. We are unable to have it both ways. They don't talk that far. So I want to say to those persons who are hurting, we have the collective responsibility as a Bahamian people to assist each other in rebounding from a Dorian and rebounding from COVID. I did not talk a lot about my experience, what I went through over and over. You know, I cracked joke with some friends of mine who weren't even in their house when their house flooded. But they cried on multiple pulpits and them offering was raised. And I say, ain't God good? And I say, Lord, what about me? what about me? So, but let me say this. We have not got everything correct in this administration in how we have responded. And I don't believe anybody has made that case. But I want to say up front, I've been very loud in the right places. So for those who expect each time there's an issue, the person who has been historically an activist is going to be out in the public sphere demonstrating concern for the public by talking at the team. No, I made a determination. Now, if there's a fundamental issue of conscience, I'll gladly part ways. But I've certainly, like others, have raised concerns about certain approaches taken. But I would not be disingenuous to say that we have not made the effort to transform some person's lives and bring them back to a place of normalcy. Could more have been done? I can think of several areas where, yeah, more could have been done and should have been done. I don't seek to make the comparison between us and the previous administration. I think the record of the previous administration with some past hurricanes, including the one, Matthew, that we worked diligently to assist people in rebounding, I think the record is clear. So I'm not going to waste time. People didn't elect me to necessarily dwell on the comparison, but I would only say to members opposite that it hasn't been a long time ago. We know what that record is. I would only say to us that we have to continue to move forward, but we have to move with a greater sense of urgency because the struggle is real. As I knock on doors, I'm not knocking on doors. I spoke to a reporter the other day who asked, what is my prediction? Are you going to win the next election? I said, that's the least of my concern right now. I'm not excited about knocking on a door to ask for support. I'm excited about knocking on the door because I believe that blue top up there with some plywood, with some felt or some peel and stick, we have the ability to change that life. And the sheetrock inside, we could change those so that particular mother, those children, that father is in a better position. That's what I'm focused on. And for the team in Marco City, we built a coalition. FNMs, PLPs, DNAs, independents. Now young people say don't watch nothing. Well, we wasn't watching no colors. And the reason is that the margin by which we won is a very simple equation. It was virtually impossible to have historic record in terms of numbers that you win by without having the support of every color. And not only is it bad politics, it is being a bad person to narrowly focus on only those that you believe are hard red or hard yellow or hard green. And so we continue to work to make sure that we remedy the situation. And so I say to all of us, and we have the discussion as colleagues, we're not going to demonize anybody who sees it different and say, listen, you all need to do more. We work for you, and we plan to work hard every day. I have an issue with folks who label colleagues who are facing crisis themselves, as if they do not care about the Bahamian people, as if some other people have a monopoly on caring. There is no political administration in this country that has a monopoly on caring about the Bahamian people. I believe that we all care. Yeah, certainly at different degrees. Some people come in here from different, but certainly the majority of people I talk to privately are spending time talking about how can we alleviate the affliction of our people. I don't have colleagues who are petitioning me on a regular basis about say, listen, man, there's some things I will get done financially. You are my vehicle, so I can come check you on them things. People call and say, listen, I guess somebody hurt and I need you to sort out the land. These people have been farming for years. They've applied for the last 10 years. what are you all going to do? You have to make it happen. And so what I'm saying is this demonizing that we do back and forth. When in opposition, we put a cloud over somebody's head. We come inside here, the investigation show it's not true, and we don't have the decency to remove the cloud. The reality is we are not going to inspire Bahamians to be more self-reliant when we seek to convince them that every hurt they have, every inadequacy that they have is a result of the fellows who now hold power. Have we done it in opposition? I'm sure we have. But I want to say to all that continue to make that case, that some of the unhappiness in persons' lives or the hurt or the pain is not a result of necessarily good or bad governance. And people know I talk to them quite candidly, and I keep my office hours. You could stop me in the food store. I try to go to every funeral because I sign up for this with eyes wide open. But I do try to preach personal responsibility. If I make a bad decision in my personal life, I accept the consequences of it. And I'm not going to be crying like whatever. The bottom line is that we have to also teach personal responsibility. It is not my role to come in here and heighten the misery index, hoping that I would then be identified as the replacement for others to lower the misery. My role is to speak life over the country. My role is to challenge our people to pull themselves up by their own bootstrap and then challenge us as a government to do what we said we would do, which is create the right environment where people who are minded to succeed can succeed. And so when I challenge colleagues, I would only apologize if I've used the incorrect words in doing so, but it will not be for standing up for Bahamians, because it's far more important to me to be loyal to the Bahamas than loyal to a political party or to an individual. And it is more important to me to be a suitable representative of Marco City than to be a minister in government. And I do not believe for a moment that I am alone in this regard. I have spoken to enough colleagues who make the point that I plan to work relentlessly and let the chips fall where they may. My love for this country will not be diminished. If I'm not sitting in this place, I will continue to love my people and work for them in a different capacity. Let me say. So I hear a lot of discussion. There are some charges that have been laid at our feet. Some of them you take personal. I mean, and you really shouldn't. If you're in this business, your shoulders have to be broad, your skin has to be thick. But let me just make it clear. Before I came here, I was eating well. So this was not a come up. This wasn't a business opportunity. This was a platform where the mission God has given me, I'm able to serve a people. That's why we run an elaborate employment program in Marco City. That's why you have a team that works in the office 6 days a week. Why we employ more people than we have the resources to actually pay, and you have to keep hustling. But because we need a team to meet a lot of those needs. And we believe employment and, of course, opportunity creation is important. That's why I salute SBDC, despite whatever challenges they would have had. In partnering with them in agriculture, we made more than $5 million available to grants across the Bahamas. And we did it without reference to color, which is why some others on the other side could have said, you got that thing? You straight? No problem. Anyone can take credit for it almost, because we were not simply trying to identify persons from the Free National Movement. But we have worked tirelessly in Marco City, an elaborate food program, not just vouchers, hot meals, or just making funds available, rental assistance, utility, etc. Do we believe all of this we have to do? No, that's not. We didn't sign up to do a job that some folks ought to do for themselves. But we are our brothers and sisters keepers, because at different times, all of us will need each other. We see it as a reasonable service to help people in their most vulnerable moment. And that's why I say to folks, somebody come to the office and they asking for help with food and you could help, let's help. Who cares what constituency they came from? It doesn't matter. Who cared who they support? Oh, that was the woman who ran us out of her yard. And so today she needs some help. Let's help her. This is like you in a relationship and the person want to trade you in an upgrade, but the upgrade didn't work. You can still be angry with them and you're doing quite well with your new boo or snuff. No, you just move on. You move on. And so the bottom line is we have demonstrated that we can. We should stop the demonizing of each other. We should stop trying to raise the misery index and then point to that group as if that's a group. I talked about this before. So here are the charges. Some folks came here to come up, but I know most of my colleagues seem to have been doing fairly well before getting here. And most people don't spend time defending themselves, because here's what happens in politics. When you spend a lot of time defending yourself, you cannot defend the people who put you here to defend them. So we let it roll on. But we are creating a narrative about each other that people will look at all of us as if we are straight gangsters. And so it has to stop. If you can't present an idea, and the idea in the marketplace of ideas win it for you, then it's unfortunate. There are some who make the argument that we're seeking to empower only one select group of persons. I don't hold any brief for any particular group, but I did make a point one time about the post office because it keeps coming up. It's now a part of the litany of charges against us. And I just ask others to give consideration to this for a moment. Both the Progressive Liberal Party and the Free National Movement was talking to the same people about the post office. Exactly. Doing the same arrangement. And all that was required in law is to come to this place, make a declaration so that you're transparent. The real issue isn't that. We are focused on the wrong thing. The real issue is, why don't we empower a lot more people so that the usual names that come up because they are most prepared are not the names that come up? But this old tired argument. I don't begrudge anybody for doing well. I am working every day, to make sure that I do what the Bible says, to leave an inheritance for my children. And I'm petty enough to take issue with somebody because their parents did it. That's not my job. That's not my job. And so we have to figure out, how do we litigate these issues on behalf of the people we love in a way that we do not demonize each other. I remember before the election, a few of us were together. I believe it was Brother Mark, Iram, and myself, and we were all wondering about what decisions are going to be made by number one. I remember my position don't change much over the years, and my position was very simple: whether you call or don't make no difference to me. I know what I sign up for. I sign up to have a mandate from a community and to serve that community with distinction. So whatever is done is irrelevant. And so I think we have to operate in a manner that all of the other extras, they can go away. Don't get attached to none of the things other than what you went in that boot. And don't get attached. It could change in a moment. Somebody can wake up in the morning and make a decision and you're gone. And so don't cry over no sour grapes. Don't carry on as if something was done to you. It is. What it is. We are called to service. We are called to service. And that's what we ought to be dedicated to. And that's why I love the executives in Mark City. That's why I love the coalition. The person who tells me, say, Bendad, don't get it twisted. I am not F&M. I just supporting this because I think what you all doing makes sense. And they're talking about a hurricane relief program in Marco City that never stopped. Every week without fail, we're giving out purchase orders because of our partners, people who work with us to try and touch some families. We work with Bahamians out of South Florida, have touched more than 55 families. We'll do probably another 20 with appliances. So if the government service is getting to us on time, am I angry? Of course I'm angry. They can tell you I did say some things and I go back to Jesus and repent. But in the meantime, I don't believe it is the structure of government alone that empowers me to do something transformative for the people that I love and serve. I believe the creativity of the team with which we work can make a difference in the lives of people. And so none of us have any excuse, whether we're a backbencher or we are cabinet minister or POWSEC or whatever. God, working with the team that we have, can help us do some extraordinary things for the people that we serve. And if those in charge don't have the wisdom to use us, then let God use you to make a difference and let him watch how it should be done. And so I'm in this organization because I believe it is the better choice for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Do I like everything that's going on? Of course not. Am I going to perjure myself and talk about some things that I do not believe? No, I don't work that way. I don't go that way. Am I tempted to say something? I am fighting it right now.
You stand true to White Mike, you stand true to yourself. You stand true to yourself, Mike.
But what I know is important is that.
Oh, you want me? You want?
Yeah, one unfortunate feature of the Bahamas is that it is a gooseying society. And woe to the person that enjoys it. So one of the things that I'm clear on, and I believe we are called to service. I think the chaplain asked us as a group to say, check what motivated you. What did you sign up for when you signed up?
Yeah.
I signed up to help empower people.
Right.
So if I'm sitting with a colleague and I don't believe they're on the same run, I share it with them. I try to do so gracefully and without sin. I don't always succeed. But I have an obligation to do that. And so all of us have to ask that question. What is the why? Somebody said recently, why you signed up? And so when I come in here and I hear some of the remarks, sometimes I laugh because some of the stuff is, it's hilarious, but unfortunate. I'm not going to sit down in a cabinet and hear a corrupt concoction and be party to it. So I find it offensive when certain charges are laid on matters that had to have come to cabinet. And you presume, you see, we can't be good friends, but yet your allegation has the presumption that I could have been present when a deliberation was taking place that was not in the interest of the Bahamian people. That's a problem. So anyone who lays a charge, and you say it was done in that place where we all sit, even if you say, not you, you're right. In a racial context, we have some African Americans who tell that story. That they said, you're talented. Oh my gosh, you speak
like
well, you run, but
You ain't like that.
you're like them.
Yeah.
No.
You different.
The bottom line is, Oban was a clumsy execution of a ceremonial signing, a signing that was done according to law, but a simulation of it, that is a reproduction of it, was clumsy. I don't know what all my colleagues think about it. I think it's a clumsy signing. Rookie's mistake.
The Prime Minister brought up
But was there a concoction of nonsense? Absolute nonsense.
Absolutely.
I've heard the opposition say, you touted a large figure in terms of donations. You know all of that was in donation. Some of it was public-private partnership. Some of it was them giving a loan at preferential rate. So what you got,
Or pledges.
pledges. So what you got was a small amount.
Small.
How could it be over a year ago, we're convinced it was a small amount, but today, when it is politically expedient that it was a large amount,
Where the money going?
and you are looking for the equivalent of where did the back money go, and now it's where did the donation money go. It's unfortunate. If the back allegation was incorrect, then condemn that. But we don't need to create an equivalent, which we know there is no basis in doing so. So it's a problem.
Not a straw man.
And in the same way we ought not function in that way, it's also true, it's true for government. I must tell you, seeing my colleagues, some of whom are now sitting on the back bench, sometimes it hurts me. I sat here yesterday and saw one of my colleagues rise to his feet and made an intervention, and it brought tears to my eyes. I was hurt. I was hurt for him. It's when you make a determination of how you see your future and the role you want to play in this country in helping to transform it, and then another group makes a choice for you, That is painful. And so we have to, all of us have to decide we can be more sensitive with each other. Because here's how our public out there to stay. If you deal with this one that way, they don't have to know the fact. I could only imagine what you think with me who you don't know. I think there's a scripture that parallels that. How could you say you love me who you see not? And those, how did it go, Bishop?
So, how can you say you love God whom you've never seen? And hate your brother whom you see?
The same thing happened to me with Brother Picewell. With Brother, see, it's an equal opportunity thing. There has to be a difference in how we deal with each other. And then we can't pretend like we're not weaker because somehow we've lost someone. And political organizations in the Bahamas do this all the time. Believe that anyone who leaves or goes, it's inconsequential. It is not true. Clement Maynard, I believe, said one time that everybody who leaves, sometimes it's a place or it's an organization, when they go, their little circle or sphere of influence go with them. And over time, those spheres of influence tend to add up and have an impact. And so all of us, we have to be sensitive. I would say, the men and women with whom I work in the organization, the vast majority of them, I'm proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with and work with them on your behalf. We have not always gotten it right, Bahamians. We know this. But we make a pledge to work harder, smarter, more collaboratively with you to help you realize your dreams. We are here because of you, and we are here working on your behalf. And I can tell you, in the constituency that I represent, there are some folks who have challenges, but they still work on your behalf. And when we serve you, we do not serve you because we're expecting some vote a day later, a year later, or whatever have you, whenever it's called. That's why I support fixed date elections. But whenever it's called, the bottom line is we are serving you because that is our mission in life. I can tell you a story as I take my seat. A lady, my good friend, so me and her, she ain't gonna be upset. I know her and her hubby sitting right on the couch right now. Daughter's at work, the son is coming home shortly. Came to the office, there was a certain item that that she wanted. We got the other item, but that particular one we didn't have yet. We would drop it another day. So somebody said online, "You can't on so bad. You know Bendad lose his house too?" She said, "I don't really care about that." I only say it that way because I didn't want to use the other words that she had put in. And you know what? She was right. I mean, it would have been nice if she said, both me and him have a little bit of challenges. I had 2 for the water. He had but 10 in the house. But, but she didn't. So what am I to do? What should my response be? I signed up with my eyes wide open. I made a commitment to serve her, not in a transactional relationship. You do for me, I do for you. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. I never agreed with that. I don't like scars on my back. And so, and so I saw when I did a town meeting, and I saw it, I said, I pull on the side, I said, listen, the next time you come to my office and do that, I want you to make it the last time. And she looked at my face and she said I was stern. And I said, but I love you, right? And she laughed and we laughed. And then I went by the house to see the husband. I just came by, bought some soap because me and you together gonna wash the wife mouth out because she says some bad things. But I never lose sight of the fact that I signed up to work in collaboration with her and her family to address some fundamental issues that they were experiencing. I believe from my private conversation with the colleagues with whom I work, and on the other side, I think I probably talk to the deputy leader more than anybody. I believe that most of us in here, that's our commitment. We really want to help some people. But somewhere along the line, something happens to the Kool-Aid that some people drink. And we start thinking self before service. And so I'm only seeking to remind colleagues that I appreciate any compliment that I'm given, but I can tell you, I believe Darren loved the Lord, and he really will serve the people of Abaco. I spent I was on the phone talking with Darren about strategy on how to get relief, not how to win an election. Because we suffer the same thing. DPM, all of us who are from Abaco and Grand Bahama, we facing some serious situations. Tremendous depression of persons who are hurting. We have had more deaths in Grand Bahama since Dorian that just seem inexplicable. Tension is high. Our role in this place, I believe, is to speak life over our people, to support the life by the work that we do, to work tirelessly to lessen the burden of the people that we serve, rather than simply to excite a public that is looking for relief, and we point them to the relief by sticking them on some people who we say they have authority. If you're not relieved, it's about them. I remember on a platform and somebody cautioned me on it before the election. Now, I remember I'd run before. Nobody really wants to be a serial loser, eh? But I was in line with certain things. So what I used to say in the rally, and I had people who would tell me, Penjad, stop saying that stupid. I'd get up and I'd say, listen, I am not going to be your salvation. I'm going to be your partner, working with you, your family, and others who support you to meet the challenges in your life. Of course, you don't have to go that far. Don't you know that ain't necessary? But the reality is I'm not the salvation of the constituents. I am but one person who will work in partnership with them. I'm appealing to my colleagues. My brother, who's running as an independent in Pine Ridge, Exuma, Chet Island, Golden Isles, Angliston, Centerville. That's all for now, right? What we cast on each other has a way of boomeranging in the minds of the public. They don't fundamentally see us different in many ways. No. And in this place, on this platform, we do a disservice to a people when we can only highlight the misery they face rather than solutions on what could alleviate that pain. We have a chance. We have a chance to preach hope. So if there's hope in this budget, you have all rights to critique it. But don't dampen the hope. For that entrepreneur who can find some salvation in another 5 million, a portion of which will touch them in Deadman's Key, or in Elizabeth, or in Southern Shores, don't dampen that. Let them find the solution and point them and then empower them on how to fill out the form online, how to go and apply for the license if they don't know. And they must hear us. They must hear us. They must hear us preaching hope. And while we challenge each other, they must also know that in a time of crisis, leaders who can't find a way to cross the divide might not be suitable for this place. We're not talking about being friends. You don't have to go walking together to share all your deep secrets. But I know in a time of crisis, leadership should find a way to work across the divide to make a difference. And so, Mr. Speaker, it is an honor to have an opportunity to represent Marco City. I treat this speech as I will every speech I deliver from this point on, because there won't be another budget speech before election, that it is an honor to have a chance to serve the Bahamian people. I've been doing it all my life. From I was a teenager in high school, and Marvin Dame, this young man, used to be in Mount Pleasant, and so Ricky Markey, when we were serving the community through an association trying to help. From that time until now, I know what I've been called to do. And if I'm not here next time, I challenge the Bahamian, have a righteous restlessness until we do better in this place. But I assure you, we will be working every day from this point on to serve you with distinction. God bless you, and I support this budget.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many? Chair recognizes the honorable member for Long Island.
You know, Mr. Speaker, no one wishes to follow Marco City. Only thing you want to say after is let the church say amen. Mr. Speaker, I'm distinctly privileged to rise in this place on behalf of the great and hard-working people of Long Island, whose indomitable spirit is legendary. I thank them, my own people from whence I came, for the opportunity to serve on their behalf. And I assure them of my unwavering commitment to them. Speaker, I want to say good afternoon to my grandparents, Mr. Edward Gibson and Mrs. Lenora Gibson, who are no doubt listening in Long Island. And I begin by expressing thanks to my executive team who have lightened my load and made my journey easier. I remain focused upon moving Long Island from strength to strength. To borrow that famous phrase, make Long Island great again. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by also extending deepest sympathies to the family of the late William Knowles, Minerva Pratt, the late educator Martin Turnquest, Willard Gibson, Gilbert Taylor, Philip Gray, my good friend, the family of my good friend, Mr. Donnie Wells, who cooked some of the best okra soup one could find. Eplin Knowles, the family of Angela Turnquest, and the family of Geraldine Turnquest. I also want to extend condolences to the family of Sir Charles Carter, who I grew up listening to every Saturday morning. His voice was majestic and took us through the journey of our history, culture. He taught so much to the Bahamas, and it's unfortunate, I believe, that I didn't have an opportunity to meet him in person. I also extend condolences to the family of the late Mr. Donald Simonet. I vividly recall our chat at Rudy's, and whoever you remember those. I vividly recall him days after I won my seat calling to congratulate me. Speaker, I also want to congratulate the graduating classes of the NGM Major High School, North Long Island High School, Mango Bush Primary School, Lower Dedmond Key Primary School, and the Sims Primary School. I encourage them to continue to fly high, reach beyond the stars. I will be the guest speaker at the Sims Primary School graduation this Friday. Life has come full circle. I attended Sims Primary School when it was in the old Gospel Hall building in a graveyard. Some days we fell into graves and only had an outdoor and outside toilet. Our classrooms were partitioned off by a wooden display board in the big open hall. And then, of course, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram came along and constructed a new, modern Sims Primary School, which I was able to attend from its opening that January to June before graduating and attending high school. That was 1995 or thereabouts. And as head boy, I vividly recall escorting him about the campus. And guess what? Mr. Ingram never forgot. He has the memory of an elephant. To this day, as a man, he reminded me of that. Mr. Speaker, this is a futuristic budget. This is a budget that encapsulates the Bahamian dream and has the components necessary to put one on the path to attaining the Bahamian dream. This budget allows family islands such as Long Island to better be able to chart our own course, economically and socially. I am pleased to know that Long Island has been included in the special economic zone. I believe that this will spur economic activity on islands such as mine, and that Bahamians will benefit. The VAT and duty concessions being available via this budget will underpin the creation and expansion of businesses. I believe that this budget and the accompanying bills will spur construction throughout the country, expand employment opportunities, expand COVID contingency support, promote the growth of tourism, provide so many opportunities that are too numerous to mention in sectors such as tourism and agriculture and fisheries and the digital economy. Mr. Speaker, this budget, I believe, will grow the economy and lessen bureaucratic red tape when you look at the bills that are part of the budget package, the compendium. Mr. Speaker, we are rebuilding after a devastating Category 5 storm and the worst pandemic in history. Not in history, I should say in a century. The worst pandemic in a century. Mr. Speaker, this is an opportunity budget. Let's take advantage of this. I encourage Long Islanders to take advantage of this. I am a product of opportunity meeting preparation, equaling success, having myself attained various elevating and awarding experiences as a result, including traveling to the Olympics as a 16-year-old to represent the Bahamas. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this budget will jumpstart sustainable economic growth and recovery, where the government invests in the people from over the hill to the family islands. And as a businessman, I'm extremely excited about the duty and VAT concessions that this budget contains. I feel this personally. And so this allows for me the growth and expansion of my businesses after a rough 2020 as well, and possibly the launch of a few more. Turning my attention to Long Island, Mr. Speaker. Long Islanders, I want to say to you that notwithstanding our challenges, things are on the up and up in Long Island. The governmental interventions that have happened and are soon to happen will lift our economy out of the doldrums and put us on the path to sustained investment and growth. Mr. Speaker, Long Island is on the move. It's Long Island's time. Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by talking about a few initiatives undertaken via the Long Island Constituency Fund, as well as donations. I'm pleased to announce that last week I entered into a contract with Peter Fox Construction for the construction of the first ever Long Island Heroes Wall. This wall will be situated at the regatta site in Salt Pond and will stand at 8 feet high, 20 feet long, and 2 feet wide. I want to thank the Long Island Association as well for allowing us to use that space. This wall will also feature a wonderfully designed base for low-hedge plants. The contract cost is $8,500. Mr. Speaker, last year I observed that none of the hurricane shelters had a backup generator. So when power went off, people were usually in complete darkness or had to use lamps and candles, and when their phones died, couldn't stay in contact with their families. So I went out this year, and given that this is hurricane season, I'm pleased to note that this week I will be presenting generators, the local government and the administrator, for each and every on-island hurricane shelter. As well as additional generators for backup emergency power. These were purchased in excess of $16,000. Mr. Speaker, Zuma, you could take that one, Zuma. Mr. Speaker, over the last year or so, we have undertaken various initiatives and donations via the constituency fund, from donations to schools for projects such as the NGM Major Gym, to 1.7 million seeds to constituents, which was later supplemented by backyard farming kits. I want to thank the member for Marco City, to providing food packages, to fully loaded COVID packages that featured hand sanitizer, wipes, Panadol, vapor rub, etc. To COVID-19 counseling sessions with Dr. Barrington Brennan. So all someone had to do during the lockdowns was call in. We paid for it. It was free for them. To assistance for persons who were stuck in Nassau during lockdown, to lunch to essential workers, donations to the Farmers Market, Long Island Association, Cancer Society, to building or constructing boat launch ramps, donating thousands of tablets, laptops, and computers to schools, to back to school, to Christmas extravaganzas, Easter events, district sport, the trophies and so on, spelling bees, and so much more. Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank my friends that are alive, namely the former CEO Damian Blackburn and Carl Momplessa, for their donation of one of the two much-needed ambulances for our two main clinics in Long Island. I thank them for acceding to my request. I'd also like to thank BHM for their donation, several loads of coal patch for the repair of potholes that plague our road, among other community building initiatives that they have participated in. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely pleased that we now have a passport office in Long Island. I thank the member for Marco City. I thank the member for North Abaco. Marco City, you were so good, man. Some of those words that you left must have me keep referring to you. But I thank the member for North Abaco. No longer will Long Islanders have to make two costly trips to Nassau to apply for or renew a passport, and then make another trip to Nassau to pick up the passport. Those days are gone. Mr. Speaker, we could not print driver's licenses, could not print decals and/or licensed vehicles in Long Island. Up until a few months ago, those days too are over. And I want to thank all those persons involved, former minister, the current minister, and everyone else involved. I'm also pleased to note that 2 road traffic offices have now been opened in Long Island. So we have fulfilled a campaign pledge to open a permanent road traffic office in the north, as it was a great inconvenience for persons living in that area of the island to travel many miles away to road traffic or wait for the road traffic officer to come down on a Tuesday and a Thursday for 3 to 4 hours with everybody cramming, trying to get their business done. These days, we have fully staffed offices and have also provided employment opportunities for islanders. Let me also thank the member for Mount Moriah and anyone else involved for acceding to my request for additional police officers and police vehicles on Long Island. I also note that this member, Mount Moriah, in his contributions pledged to renovate the police stations on Long Island. They're exploring opportunities of acquiring and deploying a small fire engine and are preparing to establish a new police station at the new Long Island International Airport. Mr. Speaker, next month we will be hosting Crystal Cruises. With Long Island being a port of call, or one of the port of calls in the Bahamas, no doubt will lend to a major boost in the local economy. And I encourage Long Islanders to provide all visitors with an authentic Bahamian experience, a true Long Island experience. As we enter this campaign season, I say to Long Islanders, let's do it again. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honorable members for Kalani and Carmichael for putting up with me as I press, push, fight for, and pursue initiatives on behalf of my people. Let me also thank them for taking an interest in Long Island and helping me to attain a number of the intended objectives for Long Island. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Freetown. And I want to also commend Director of Aviation, Mr. Algernon Kagel, for his sheer tenacity and thrust in helping us to achieve our goal of an international airport. I applaud him. We spoke last night. Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to inform Long Islanders that the tender for the land side, that is the terminal, is out and due back next week for bid evaluation. I'm advised that that contract will be awarded within 4 weeks of the receipt of the bids. I'm also pleased to note that the air side, that is the runway, was released to potential bidders last week. That tender process is expected to take from 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm advised that contract will be issued immediately upon return and evaluation of the bids. Mr. Speaker, this is what we're looking at, Long Island. This is Long Island's future, Mr. Speaker. soon to arrive, the new international airport. Mr. Speaker, I'm advised that the land acquisition for the Long Island International Airport is in its final stages, so that government intends to fairly compensate the landowners. Soon, Long Island will be scheduled or will have scheduled international flights for the first time. This $18 million airport will be a huge boost to our economy, and it will lend to the economic boost that we have always desired, and now will be finally attaining. I encourage Long Islanders to get ready. Get ready, Long Island. Take advantage of these tax concessions. Build Airbnbs. Build your restaurants. Open your restaurants, your bed and breakfasts, your motels. Branch off into many of the spin-off businesses. Capitalize on this special economic zone and the VAT and customs concessions available to you. Speaker, I'm extremely pleased by the progress of Waterwood in Long Island. And lot number one, Mr. Speaker, works are nearing completion and will soon be commissioned. We laid some 18.9 miles of pipe, some 96,000 feet of pipe. More than 300 service connections will be expected, and hundreds of people will benefit. We will be commissioning that this summer. This summer, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and lots 3 and 4, works are nearing completion. Lots 3 and 4. This is Sims, Long Island. And here, some 12.9 miles or 68,000 feet of pipe was laid. We expect roughly 200 service connections and hundreds of beneficiaries. And this summer, we will be commissioning that as well. We look forward to being joined by the PM, the DPM, and some of my colleagues as we turn on water in these areas for the first time ever. Mr. Speaker, we have completed a number of projects on Long Island. Phase 1 and 2 of the Long Island Service Lateral Changeout, where we conducted an aggressive NRW program to reduce leaks and improve pressures in Long Island. This led to the replacement of some 627 service laterals in Deadman's Key. We have completed the installation of a new distribution system in Wood Hill, inclusive of a 5,000-gallon holding tank and pumping system. And this completed the provision of closer community water services to all of southern Long Island, including Roses, Berries, Mortimers, Dunmores, Wood Hill, etc. Connecting these systems up is our ultimate goal. Mr. Speaker, WSC has also completed the installation of 3 community booster stations and a Deadman's Key water distribution system that will increase pressure and provide added service levels at higher elevations. We've also completed numerous side streets in Long Island, including New Mains and Scrub Hill, the Bite Settlement, extension to Pindus Road, Stafford Miller, and those, I don't know, that's an unnamed road in Salt Pond, Windsor Settlement, the Crossing, the Bite, Kelly Point Road, etc. Over the last year or so, we have seen substantial completion of a new operational and storage compound for equipment and supplies. We've also purchased a new modern water tanker, double the capacity for those areas that we have not yet gotten to. Mr. Speaker, I do want to address the areas of Millers and McCann and Sam McKinnon, where the PLP have dishonestly referred to us, me, as having victimized them, notwithstanding their own less than stellar record in government. I want to equip them with the facts, not that they haven't been equipped with it before. Mr. Speaker, no time have I, my board, or the Water and Sewage Corporation disenfranchised or willfully excluded the communities of Thompson Bay, McCanns, Millis, Sam McKinnon's from the water mains expansion project. I have adamantly pursued the water extension works in Long Island. Notwithstanding that, though, the Caribbean Development Bank water mains extension loan must be split between multiple islands and is directed towards targeting the greatest clusters of residents and settlements on these islands, given the multi-million-dollar expenditure. Pursuant to the terms of the CDB loan, WSC has, and we have our own in-house CDB project team. We have an external independent assessor, and the CDB has oversight and concurrent sign-off. So this is not something that WSC just makes a decision and we go. All of these persons provide relevant details and carry out assessments to contribute to or greatly impact and influence the process. As such, we have carried out various assessments where the corporation has deployed ground teams to assess communities and determine possible connections. Given the same, a practical decision was made to extend the water mains northwards and southwards of the existing Sims community water system with a view to eventually tying in the entire network. The corporation also discovered that sections currently covered for phase 2 of the works were most feasible given the budgetary constraints that limited our reach and the fact that there was an existing system and a reverse osmosis plant already in Sims. This was also because, Mr. Speaker, those areas have in excess, that is the Sims area, south and north of Sims, having in excess of some 200 connections, household and business, as compared to McCann's, Millis, and Sam McKinnon's, where I'm advised there were some 35 connections. In providing water to Long Island and other family islands using loan funds, one of the major objectives of both WSC and the lending bank is to maximize the number of beneficiaries. This also lends to WSC over time being in position to recoup the investment, which in turn allows for major works to be undertaken in the future and for revenue to be generated to repay our infrastructural loan. Many persons living in these areas, the same small areas that they spoke of, are also my supporters. On repeated occasions, I have addressed the intention of WSC to carry out internally generated engineering and work with a view to laying pipe in McCann's, Millis, Sam McKinnon's, Thompson Bay as well. Our team has carried out further assessments in those areas, and we intend to conduct that extension as an internal project. Mr. Speaker, we also keen to provide service to our sister company, BPL, which is situated in Millis. And so I can assure the people of Millis and McCann's and Sam McKinnon's that there's nothing sinister afoot. We're working hard for you as well. Mr. Speaker, my 88-year-old grandmother and 87-year-old grandfather will get to see and feel running water in their house for the first time. Their area was not among those that previously had water. And so I'm excited to travel to Long Island to turn on water this summer. Mr. Speaker, just as I assure my constituents that Long Island, on this front, has not been forgotten, I can assure my colleagues in this place and their constituents that they have not been forgotten. And I'll speak to that shortly. Mr. Speaker, soon Long Islanders will not have to fly to New Providence and incur sizable travel costs to access healthcare. Our clinics will benefit from an innovative telemedicine initiative and the digitization of healthcare. In recent weeks, I participated in an IDB seminar for the renovation, expansion, and redesign of the Deadman's Key Clinic. I've seen the architectural renderings, and I want to thank the member for Bamboo Town. For this project. And he has assured me that we will receive a new ambulance, which will complement to the nation from alive, and I want to thank you. These renovations will result in a lab where persons will have x-rays, ultrasound, point-of-care labs. Mr. Speaker, the members also assured me that the Sims Community Clinic, which is the second major clinic and serves a large percentage of the population, particularly in the area where you have two major hotels, that clinic will also receive works from his ministry during this budgetary cycle. So I want to thank him, but I also want to bring to the attention of the minister, the member, the need for additional nurses in Long Island. We have severe staff shortages there. And with the transfer of the doctor in the north and the retirement of Dr. Carter, it's my expectation that those replacements have been identified. Long Island cannot be left without doctors. As with many societies, some of my constituents suffer from various illnesses. And so given that, it would be nice for either the government's physicians or maybe private physicians to consider traveling to Long Island or setting up clinics, from urologists to oncologists, to dentists and ophthalmologists. So, Mr. Speaker, I leave that with the member for Bamboo Town. I thank the member for Michael for his support in Long Island. And in recent years, we've received a number of infrastructure undertakings from Newton Key to the redevelopment of the monument site, paving of that road, paving of Sims and Clarence-Town Dock, to the paving that is being done now, some 4.3 million, hot mix asphalt. And that includes the placement of 117 stop signs, 122 curve signs, 92 speed limit signs, and 26 settlement signs. But I know that Long Island's neglect and lack of maintenance over the years has left much to be done. These are legacy infrastructural issues. I've written to the minister, to the member for Carmichael, about our varying needs, from additional road works, to replacement of blown BPL lights, to the installation of poles in certain areas, the drainage issues faced in certain parts of the island. I know Maurice Minnis is pleased to hear about that. The seawalls, to green and recreational spaces. I look forward to his communication in the coming days. Mr. Speaker, Long Island fishermen are also very pleased with the new fishing legislation. Since that law was passed in this place, the complaints about poachers have dramatically lessened. Fishermen are pleased with the effort to guard our heritage, and I want to thank the member for Marco City again for the repairs effected at the parking house. However, I also request a truck for the local operators at that parking house. We are grateful, Mr. Speaker, for the seed money recently granted to farmers and fishermen on the island, Marco City. Mr. Speaker, I'm calling upon our government to confirm the hard-working staff at Urban Renewal who continue to do a fantastic job. Our team works assiduously with limited resources. And given that this is the first iteration of Urban Renewal in Long Island, and all of them are now on expired contracts, I urge consideration for them to become permanent and pensionable. When I was first elected, one of my first tasks was to assist a lady by the name of Beryl Fox. However, time ran out within my first year. She attained the age of 65. And though she was a janitor at the high school for some 20 or so years, she went home without a pension. This is a sad state of affairs, Mr. Speaker, and I hope that this injustice is rectified for Ms. Fox. Mr. Speaker, I am advised that we have a teacher shortage in Long Island. Long Island administrators should know that the member of South Beach and I have a really good relationship, and I will be discussing your concerns with him. I'm happy to hear the educational review, where persons such as my former teacher, now principal of NGM Major, Mr. Endel Adderley, and his vice principal, my other former teacher, Ms. Kathy Cartwright, can be confirmed. Both of these individuals are outstanding teachers and leaders. It is very unfortunate that former District Superintendent Macon Cartwright, my former principal, had to retire as a principal, though he served and performed as District Superintendent for many years. I trust that something can be done to correct such injustices. Given the truth and the increasing tourist traffic in Long Island, yes, given the growth, I should say, and the increasing tourist traffic in Long Island, we are in need of immigration officers as well. And I trust that the member for Yamakroa would assist in the recruitment of Long Islanders, where they too can join the rank of the Department of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, Long Island. So, Mr. Speaker, given that we are approaching the luncheon hour, I'll stop here and I'll return at 3 o'clock.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just happy to hear religion being found. Titus is no longer type. So the view from that side is different. Mr. Speaker, as I move to the luncheon break, I would love to beg your indulgence to offer condolences to the good member for my cow, her family. She lost her brother-in-law over the weekend. So our heart goes out to you. Please convey our sentiments to your husband and the rest of your family. Mr. Speaker, I move that the business of the House suspends for the luncheon break and that we return sharply at 3 p.m.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the business of this House suspends until 3 p.m. this afternoon. As many members that are in favor will remain seated, those who oppose will stand. The business of this House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
All right.